Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing what is technically episode 65, Holiday Hijinks. The reason why I say technically is because this episode was banned due to having Jinx appear as black instead of purple, and it basically didn't go over well in the West, as it was accused of blackface, so this episode never aired, and it ended up airing later than it should have. So, this episode actually chronologically takes place at some point before Charmander evolves, as he's still a Charmander in this episode. So, really, I guess you could just see this as like episode 33.5 or some shit. But anyways, let's get on with the summary. The episode begins with Jessie in a castle on Christmas Eve, awaiting a present from Santa. Just like every other kid out there, she was having trouble sleeping that night, and was attempting to fake it so that Santa would still deliver the present, even though she wasn't sleeping. Or not. She was actually attempting to fake it because she wanted to see the Santa get captured as he walked in, and he in fact did, as Jessie had captured the Santa right as he was going to deliver some presents, meaning she could take them all. The lights then turn on, and it's revealed that this was nothing but a trial run. The Santa was not actually a genuine Santa, but James dressed in a suit, who had agreed to the capture plan so that they could test out their plan for the real Santa this coming Christmas. Their plan was essentially to capture Santa and then steal all the presents. Wow, what a generic plot. Anyways, Jessie and Meowth jump up in excitement at the fact that they captured James, stating how this had to mean that their plan would work with the actual Santa, and they would finally be able to steal all the presents. Jessie, however, was more interested in simply capturing Santa period, rather than just the presents. Meowth questions why that is, as James yells for them to let him down, being absolutely done with this plan at this point, leading Jessie to reveal the reason for her hatred for Santa. She starts by clarifying that she didn't believe in the traditional Santa, but rather a Jinx. Yes, she genuinely believed that the Pokemon Jinx was Santa Claus. This leads Meowth and James to obviously question this, like, what the fuck, how's a Pokemon Santa? But then Jessie further explains her story, which happened 10 years ago. Essentially, Jessie was waiting up late in the night one night for Santa to deliver the presents, as any kid would be, and she was so impatient that she grabbed her doll and fucking threw it at the fireplace in fucking anticipation. Like, she was just so hyped for the presents that she just couldn't contain her anger, wanting them to get there sooner. Anyways, she immediately regretted this, obviously, and went to go retrieve her toy, but then she heard something coming down the chimney, in addition to sleigh bells, so she went to go hide under the covers, believing Santa to be here, and that he would simply replace the toy that she broke anyway. But, unfortunately, the Santa was a Jinx, and not only did it not replace her toy, it instead picked it up and took it and immediately retreated back into the fireplace, back up the chimney. James and Meowth still don't believe the part of the story that involves a Jinx being Santa Claus, and Jessie gets pissed off, not only at that fact, but at the fact that they seemingly didn't care that her whole fucking childhood was ruined by a Jinx having taken her favorite toy. Meanwhile, Ash and the gang were on a sunny beach somewhere. Once again, we don't really know when this episode takes place. Who knows, maybe it takes place like right after the Porta Vista stuff, and that's why they were on a beach. But anyways, they had spotted a Jinx and were spying on it, and they attempted to move closer so that Ash could use his Pokedex on it. The Pokedex reveals that Jinx's signature move was Lovely Kiss, which it essentially kissed its opponent, which put them to sleep as a result. Ash and the gang further watch the Jinx and see that it's holding a boot, as Ash orders his Pikachu to go attack it so he can capture it. So Pikachu uses Thunderbolt, but I guess the Thunderbolt does absolutely nothing, leading Jinx to use its Lovely Kiss on Pikachu, putting it to sleep. Ash then sends out his Charmander, with Pikachu unable to battle, and Charmander uses Flamethrower on the Jinx's hair, which distracts it enough so that Ash can try catching it by using a Pokeball, but when he does, the Pokeball is deflected as Jinx glows, and the boot that it was holding floats up and blocks it. What does this mean? Was the boot magic? Well, no. As Brock and Misty state, that it was likely that the boot belonged to Jinx's original trainer, and since Jinx had an original trainer, it couldn't be captured, so the boot essentially acted as a block. Misty then begins to doubt her own theory, though, as she realizes that if the boot belonged to Jinx's original trainer, then where was the original trainer in the first place? It is then that Jinx answers Misty's question by going up to her and giving her the boot, which inside is labeled with Santa's name, implying that Jinx's original trainer was none other than Santa for some reason. After Ash and the gang realize this, Jinx proceeds to kiss Brock as congratulations for them successfully figuring it out, and then proceeds to glow and use her hair to telepathically connect with Ash and the gang, fucking connecting her strands of hair with their heads, and it's through this telepathic connection that she's able to show them why she was by herself. As she shares with them a memory of how one day she was simply sitting on a glacier polishing Santa's boot for him, when suddenly the glacier broke off from the rest of the North Pole, and the glacier essentially floated off onto this very beach, meaning that she was displaced from the North Pole where Santa was. Jinx then ended the memory and stated how she desperately wanted to get back to the North Pole with Santa, leading Ash to promise that him and the gang were going to do everything in their power to help Jinx out, leading Jinx to kiss Ash in appreciation. Meanwhile, Team Rocket is spying on Ash and the gang as usual, spots Jinx, and this leads Jessie to assume that Jinx was attempting to try and scam Ash and the gang, like it had scammed her out of her toy 10 years ago, and wants to follow along so that she can get her revenge on the Jinx, likely by either defeating it in battle or fucking maybe even killing it, who knows. James and Meowth agree to follow Jessie, wanting to see if Jinx would lead them to the North Pole if she truly was Santa after all, and therefore they could steal the presents. Meanwhile, back with Ash and the gang, they decided that the best way to reach the North Pole, having to cross the ocean, would be to use a raft, so they let out all their water Pokemon, with Ash letting out Squirtle, and Misty letting out Staryu, Starmie, and Goldeen, as well as Psyduck, although Psyduck refused to help due to not being able to breathe underwater. And all the Pokemon proceed to pull Ash and the gang, along with Jinx, on a raft towards the North Pole, with Team Rocket trailing them in their Gyarados sub, which had been rebuilt by this point. After a bit of traveling, though, all the Pokemon get extremely tired from having to pull the raft, so Ash decides to return all the Pokemon to their Pokeballs and pull everyone instead, as he takes off his clothes and jumps in the water. He must be pretty fucking strong, as he's able to pull all their weight for quite a while, but of course, if the Pokemon were able to get tired, he certainly gets tired as well. He's about to quit, when suddenly, he hears a voice in his head. This causes him to panic, thinking maybe he's going insane from pushing himself too hard, and he asks his friends if they heard anything, which they deny. He shrugs it off as nothing, assuming that he was probably just hallucinating, once again due to the fact that he was pushing himself too hard, but then he hears the voice a second time, and right as he does, a huge wave appears and knocks him away from the raft, detaching him and sending the raft backwards. Brock and Misty call out for Ash as they're dragged away by the wave, and Ash falls underwater, about to drown. But then, in a Deus Ex Machina moment, the source of the voice reveals itself, a Lapras, and brings Ash up to the surface, saving him from drowning. The Lapras then reveals that it can talk telepathically. So, I don't know, maybe Lapras does have a connection to Jinx, who knows? I mean, Jinx can do telepathic visions, and Lapras can talk telepathically, but that's just a theory. The Lapras then returns Ash to the raft as they locate Brock and Misty, and Misty immediately becomes curious of the Lapras' abilities as she finds Ash's Pokedex from his backpack and uses it, where the Pokedex reveals that not only could Lapras speak telepathically due to being intellectually advanced, but it also liked to carry people on its back, which is why it so easily scooped up Ash. With Ash safely returned to the raft, Lapras then reveals that it was sent by none other than Santa to find Jinx and bring her back to the North Pole, and offered to bring Ash and the gang along with Jinx the rest of the way there so that they wouldn't have to do any more pushing with the raft, further stating how impressed it was that humans had made it this far on their own. Ash and the gang happily accept Lapras' help, presumably because they simply wanted to go to the North Pole, because if I was them, I would just say, Lapras, you can just take Jinx back and then, we'll go back to the mainland. But anyways, Ash and the gang cheer at actually being fortunate, and as a result, Jinx celebrates and tries to kiss Brock yet again. But even Brock, being a simp, tries to deny the kiss. Hugging's where it stops, bro. Meanwhile, Team Rocket trailed the Lapras in their Gyarados sub, getting tired themselves from having to do all the pedaling. Back with Ash and the gang, Lapras was indeed pulling the raft, and they were getting closer to the North Pole as they passed by a whole bunch of glaciers. As a result, it was extremely fucking cold now, to the point where Ash and the gang were freezing, and they had to go into Jinx's hair for warmth. I hope that's sanitary. Shortly after, the group arrives at a large mound of ice, as Lapras informs them that this place was indeed where Santa's workshop was located. Before they can officially reach land, though, Team Rocket rise up in their Gyarados sub. Team Rocket is immensely freezing and tired from having to do all the pedaling on their Gyarados sub, but they still manage to yell out their motto as they demand Jinx, who Jesse still states is Santa Claus. Ash and the gang immediately laugh at this, like obviously fucking Santa isn't Jinx, bro. Santa's a fat old dude, as if that was any more believable. With Ash and the gang obviously refusing to hand over the Jinx, Meowth goes for plan B, which is to fire a net from the Gyarados sub, which initially appears as a missile, but then the missile drops down the net and captures Ash and the gang inside, with the exception of the Jinx, because Team Rocket then swoop in and steal the Jinx, with Ash and the gang unable to do anything. Lapras was trapped in the net as well, so it can't even pull the raft to chase after the Gyarados sub, as Team Rocket may take their leave, heading towards Santa's workshop on the huge ice structure. Once they reach it, they tie Jinx up in a rope and get out of their Gyarados sub, heading towards Santa's factory. They peek in the window, expecting to only find more Jinx, as Jesse believed that essentially how the Santa hierarchy worked was that there was one Jinx that acted as the main Santa, and then all the other Jinx acted as elves. However, when Jessie looked in the window, she was shocked to see that while the Jinx were in fact acting as elves, there was a genuine Santa after all. And I mean a fat bearded one, not a Jinx. This immensely shocks Jessie. And the shock hits her so much that she essentially just forgets about her plan to try and get revenge on the Jinx, thinking that maybe she must have fucking imagined that Jinx was a Santa or something, and decides to go along with James and Meowth's plan, which was to steal all of the presents. They proceed to break into Santa's workshop, as he's complaining that his feet were cold as he was missing his boot, obviously due to Jinx having one of his boots. Jessie kindly comes up to Santa, explaining that she found his boot, and goes to give it to him, but it turns out that Team Rocket just did it as a trick to get up close to Santa, so James could pull out some rope and tie him up, which he does. Team Rocket then forced all the Jinx to start loading all the presents into their Gyarados sub, threatening that they would harm Santa if they didn't. Thankfully, though, Ash and the gang managed to show up and interrupt Team Rocket's plan, somehow breaking free from the net. And honestly, I'd wager that it probably wasn't that difficult. I mean, I'm sure Lapras was covered with the net, but I'm sure it still could have used like Ice Beam or something to like break the net. Anyways, as the Jinx load all the presents into the Gyarados sub, Santa screams at Jessie, questioning why Team Rocket were doing this, and Jessie then tells Santa about the Jinx incident and how she was just making up for the fact that she never got any presents that one year, and instead had her one toy that she liked stolen by the Jinx. Yeah, Jessie, as if not getting one present for 1 year means you can steal fucking billions and billions of presents. But anyways, Santa or none of the Jinx could recall having stolen anything from anyone, so the Jinx that was the main one in this episode proceeds to use its telepathic powers to hook up to Jessie's mind and view her memory of the incident. After it does this, it then goes back into Santa's workshop and grabs Jessie's toy and brings it back to her, revealing that it was fully fixed. The Jinx expected that this would make Jessie happy, but it actually just makes her more angry, as she questions why the fuck Santa still had it. Like, was he stealing toys from kids and then fucking fixing them just to play with them himself? This accusation leads Santa to reveal that Jessie had misunderstood the situation their entire fucking life. The Jinx didn't steal her toy. Instead, it saw that it was broken and decided to take it and return it to Santa's workshop so Santa could fix it, not bothering to give Jessie any other presents because she knew that Jessie liked this doll more than any other toy anyways. When Jessie questions why the toy was never given back to her then, Santa confirms that it was because, due to Jessie believing that Santa was Jinx, she had, in turn, not believed in Santa anymore, and that meant that he wasn't able to give any gifts to her anymore. Jessie happily hugs her toy, finally having it back after all this time, leading even James to cry, feeling Jessie's intense emotions. Thinking now that Jessie understood the situation, she would stop her evil plot, Santa then pleaded with Jessie to free him from the rope. Jessie denied this, though, as even though she was happy to have her doll back, she was still mad at the fact that Jinx never gave her anything in replacement. And let's be real, was also likely mad at the fact that you had to believe in Santa to get presents. Like, that's fucking stupid, man. Whatever the reason, the point was, Team Rocket wasn't done yet, and their plan had actually went just as they intended, as all the presents were loaded into the Gyarados sub, so they could now take their leave with no issue. However, Team Rocket had forgotten about Lapras, who had arrived when Ash and the gang did, but was simply waiting outside of the factory. Due to not being tied up, it was able to get off an Ice Beam attack as it declared to Team Rocket, "Don't fucking steal Christmas, bitches!" And the Ice Beam froze them in their place, freezing the Gyarados sub. Ash then manages to pull out one of his Pokeballs from his pocket despite being tied up, and sends out Charmander, who burns the rope tying everyone up, freeing them. Charmander then uses yet another Fire Spin in order to attack the Gyarados sub, but he wasn't thinking, and he actually ends up just melting the ice, which actually just benefits Team Rocket in the long run, as now the Gyarados sub is free. To make matters even worse for Ash and the gang, James then sends out his Weezing and has it use Sludge on Charmander, which blinds him, so Charmander can't even attack anymore. Due to truly having no one that can stop them now, even though I don't see why Lapras couldn't have just used Ice Beam again. Team Rocket then disappeared under the water in their Gyarados sub. They were gone, and they had actually fucking won for once. At least they only took presents and no Pokemon this time. Ash immediately apologizes to Santa, as it was because of his Charmander that the ice was melted, and he feels guilty. But Santa's like, "Yo bro, no worries, I have a plan," and he instructs all of his Jinx to use their Psychic Psywave attacks. The Psywave manages to lift the sub back out of the water and tilt it over, dropping all of the presents free, much to Team Rocket's frustration, as the psychic attacks then cause the sub to blow up, sending them blasting off. Later that night, with the presents returned, it means that Santa can successfully go deliver them, confirming that this episode was set on Christmas Eve. Before Santa goes, though, he instructs his Lapras to bring Ash and the gang back to the island that they were on originally, and then sets off to deliver the presents using a Rapidash as his reindeer. It then begins to snow, as Ash realizes that Santa left before he could tell him what he wanted for Christmas. Oh my god, this is the saddest day ever. Lapras then reminds Ash, though, that Santa always knew what little kids wanted. That doesn't sound suggestive at all, but Ash is just happy to get a present, along with Brock and Misty, as all the Jinx then give them their presents, as a reward for helping save the day. As Lapras returns Ash and the gang to the island, as Santa had requested, the episode then ends with one final scene of Team Rocket. It's revealed that they had blasted off back into the house that they were in at the beginning of the episode, and were laying in bed, with Jessie now claiming that she believed in Santa and was hoping to get a present today. But we all know that she was probably just making that up, and she didn't actually believe in Santa. She just wanted a goddamn present. It's for this reason that Jinx decides to show up and troll her ass as she kisses both Jessie and James, putting them to sleep. Santa shouts Merry Christmas as he goes right past their goddamn houses. Sucks to be you, Team Rocket.